Well, the cost of childcare is soaring, up 26% in the last decade. This is according to the latest numbers here from the White House. Well, President Biden, he wants to change that. Ahead of a reported re-election announcement, President Biden is putting child and elder long-term care affordability in the spotlight, signing an executive order this week directing federal agencies to find ways to make care cheaper.
Right now, the cost of care is too high for seniors in nursing homes, for working families with young children. Pay for care workers is too low. We should have no one should have to choose between caring for the parents who raise them, the children who depend on them, or the paycheck they rely on to take care of both.
Well, our next guest was at that signing ceremony yesterday. Joining us now is Ann Hedgepeth, Childcare Aware of America policy and advocacy leader. And it's good to see you. And that executive order that was signed includes more than 50 directives in order to fix the current system. Let's just take a step back here. How dire is the current situation when it comes to childcare and elderly care here in the U.S.?
Yeah, I think many of us know just from talking to our friends and our family or living through it ourselves that the price of childcare is too high. It's on average over $10,000. And of course, in many areas of the country, every year families are putting even more than that to their childcare expenses. On top of that, our analysis found that there are 3.6 million, there's a gap of 3.6 million slots. That means the demand is higher than the supply currently provides for. So even if you want childcare and you can afford childcare, you often can't find childcare. And that's a big issue for parents. It's a big issue for employers, and communities are really struggling with that. We want to make sure that families can find the care they need and that that's done with fair compensation and robust investment in our childcare system.
And presumably an issue for this entire country. What's the impact on our workforce?
Sure. We know that we see overall lost earnings and lost potential earnings because there are workers who aren't able to be a part of our workforce. They're stopping out, dropping out, or experiencing time away just because of caregiving needs. That impacts all of us, not to mention the fact that so many families across the country are tapping into their networks, their friends, their families, their neighbors to piece together a childcare puzzle. Ideally, that wouldn't have to be the situation. Families would be able to choose the childcare that they want for their child when they need it, and we'd make sure that we power the workforce that takes care of all of our children so that they can invest in high quality care and we can set children up for success.
And what about the funding for all this? Because this executive order, according to the Biden administration, doesn't require any new spending. So how are some of these changes? Who's paying for that?
Such an important question, and something the Biden administration has been very clear about. These directives are critical. They let us make the most of our existing childcare programs. They'll make it so that the federal workforce and the federal agencies are model employers, and they'll even invest in some of the needs of military families. But at the end of the day, we will still need Congress to do their job. They have to fund these programs, and they can't roll back their investments in childcare and early learning. We would see cuts to programs at just the time when we need more investment. So while these directives are going to cut through red tape or even make the most of existing policies, we're also going to need to see additional funding come from Congress.
But this is, of course, at a time where both parties even admit it's time to begin to cut this budget. Now, primarily, that's an argument you hear from Kevin McCarthy and Republicans. But where might this money come from?
At the end of the day, our budgets as a country are a representation of our priorities. You've heard the president say that, and I think it's very clear that this administration sees childcare as a priority. Childcare Aware of America completely agrees. And so when it comes to figuring out our budget this year and funding programs, there may be opportunity for cuts in some places, but the last place we should be cutting is where it comes to the basics of family budgets and investing in our children.
And are you confident that this executive order is really going to make a difference? Because some of the criticism, I don't know if I can say criticism, but some of the thought process out there is that President Biden is laying this out. It's not going to make a huge difference, and it's all part of this possible re-election here that he could be seeking in 2024.
Well, it's wonderful to see anyone prioritizing childcare, and I think that's responsive to what families are calling for right now. To the extent that his administration can issue directives, make clear to states who are implementing these policies, or even improve their internal policies, yes, there could be some immediate changes for the federal workforce and even for families and providers whose states might then adjust the policies they oversee because the federal agency told them to. I'm hoping we'll see some of those shifts. We may also have a longer timeline on other things, but we need to get started now. So even if there are regulations that have to change, let's get that process going and let's make sure that we're thinking towards the future of our childcare system.
Certainly is things that needs to be changed. A very, very critical issue here facing our country. And Hedgepeth, thanks so much.